we talk about, people don't care what you know unless they know that you care about them. And so it needs to be warm, it needs to be genuine.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Today I have Jared. Jared is a GM at a nutrition store, and he have a very unique way to scale the location, a retail location, and he's done it through service. So it's a very unique system that he's using, and have great success. And he's here to tell us about it. So, Jared, could you share with us, your background, how to get started in this, nutrition business?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Well, I was a college athlete, um, ended up going to school minoring in nutrition, and then started working in some of the fighting gyms around where I wrestled in college. So I was helping teach fighters to cut weight and water weight and stuff like that. And it just kind of snowballed. One day I met a regional manager in the company I'm in now, and asked me if I wanted to work for a supplement shop, and I said no. I kind of laughed at him and I was like, I don't want to sell supplements, man. I'm a nutrition guy, and eat your food. And he worked on me. He actually hired on to another business I was working at and to try to meet people to basically find employees, find staffing. And we ended up talking for about 15 hours over a weekend. And I agreed to kind of come on board at that point.
So what were you expecting that it's gonna happen at this nutrition retail location?
Yeah. So my previous experience with some of the bigger brand names in the supplement industry, it's very much sales driven, you know, very supplement dominant, and often lacks a lot of the nutritional structure on how to approach supplements and use them the correct way. And so many in the more advanced nutritional side really view it as can be gimmicky or oversellsy, if you want to call it that. And that's what I was worried about. And that's kind of what I thought I was getting into.
I mean, I gotta say, like that's my first impression, right? When I speak to you, it's like, oh man, like supplements, do we need another supplement brand? So what is your competitive difference in other supplement game?
Yeah. Well, I think it's mainly comes down to the shop is actually much more service oriented than it is a traditional retail sale environment. Um, the two things I really teach people in the store is the objective is to retain a customer base, not to sell to them. And you can do both, but it has to be balanced, and you have to have structures in place that um, support that process. And so the main thing is when a customer comes in the door, if we're going to sell to them, we need to get the correct item. And then if we're going to continue to sell to them, we need to make sure it's actually working. And if you do those two things, you'll retain a customer base, you'll build a relationship with them. The sales will take care of themselves. Once someone learns they can trust you, they're going to open up and ask about things they wouldn't have asked to begin with. The process we use to be able to narrow down what is the correct item for this customer also brings up things that they may have themselves not even realize is supplementation. And so the sales end up taking care of themselves, but it's the life of the customer value that you earn.
So it sounds like you actually do a consultation, right?
Yes,
To the
sir.
customer as they walk in, you kind of ask them what are their needs and their lifestyle, and then what are they currently taking. It's like sound like a doctor giving a prescription, pretty much.
Uh, yeah, we've had that reference before. Yeah, in a way, all the things you just said, and it's actually interesting. You hit several of our key questions on the head. It's what is your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you currently doing? Is there areas where I can provide value that have nothing to do with supplements? And many times we find out that actually narrows down what supplement. And often it's not what the person originally came in for.
So how did you like grow your store, and with marketing, and what type of marketing are you doing right now that is working well for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We don't do traditional marketing the way many stores do. We operate heavily on word of mouth and referral based systems. And we actually grew last year, I think at 33% over the previous year. And I think we spent $300 on marketing, and that was for an expo table. The the marketing is very much kind of organic or aggregate in a way. It's the best example I have is if you actually get someone results and they've bought in and they believe in that you actually care about them, and you want to see them succeed. As that success unfolds, everyone in their household will slowly trickle into the shop, basically. And it's old school in a lot of ways, but it works for us.
Yeah, I think like that is building the local reputation, and it's very unique for brick and mortar versus online, sales, because like you are kind of, there for the next decade. So you might as well sell something good, right? You'll be there for a while. Might as well provide good value and good products to the local community, because that's who's buying from you. Your radius, your 5-10 miles radius is your customer. So can you elaborate on like the training, the customer service aspect of your business?
Yeah, it's probably the single most difficult aspect of our model is to be able to take someone off the street and get them up to a serviceable level of a sales capability. And I don't mean that in the ability to push bottles out. I mean, like we were talking about, qualifying someone, working through their process, being comfortable talking with them, making them feel comfortable talking about what could be very personal stuff. It's kind of high level sales in my experience. The other side of it is they have to actually know nutrition, and exercise programming and methodology, pretty high level medical stuff, actually, because we deal with it a lot. You have someone, I've got a young employee and they're like all gung ho to write this person a nutrition program. And then that person says, oh, I'm also a diabetic. You have to be well versed in that. Otherwise, you can quickly get into deep water. The last aspect is also the supplement knowledge. And so at any given time, there's probably 5,000 to 6,000 ingredients represented in the store. And that employee should have a working hand, at least working knowledge of every single one of them. So it can be extensive. We've developed, and we're a young company, so the process has developed a lot. The owner's done a really great job at developing systems for that. But it's typically anywhere from like 2 to 6 months before an employee is actually fully trained.
Wow, I did not know there are so many ingredients
Yeah.
in a nutrition store. So what is like the best method for you to kind of like recruit and train your employees, making sure that they are performing to like pretty much to KPI?
Well, I think there's several answers to that question. So we'll start with the recruiting aspect. Obviously, when you're trying to teach that much information, it's better if they come in the door with some of it. So it can be something as simple as I sit down to dinner and the server is just awesome. That will stand out to me, and I'll make sure I get a card in their hand and talk to them and try to get to know them over the course of the meal. So you're constantly head on a swivel for that. But also we build a lot of strong relationships with all the businesses like in our industry. So almost every gym facility, yoga, whatever if it's in the bike shops. And so we do our best to be able to have those strong relationships. So when I'm in a hiring phase, I can go in, drop signage off, have those business owners actually start watching for me. On our marketing side, we talk a lot about in-kind and business-to-business relationships. And this is a big way of how we go around paying for marketing also. So if I'm providing genuine value to them, when I'm talking to my customers and I catch a guy who's just obsessed with bikes, and I know that the local bike shop needs a floor guy or salesman or desk clerk, whatever, for their shop, I'm going to put those two guys in touch. You do that enough and you take care of the people around you, they start doing the same thing for you. And so that's our target market when we're trying to bring someone on board.
That's very cool. So I want to ask you about the customer journey, right? That's always interesting to. So if I'm walking by and I see nutrition and your shop and I walked in, what happened?
Well, we're going to greet you, and it's going to be low pressure, especially in our industry when it is highly saturated and there's almost a preconceived notion of what you're walking into. Um, we talk about, people don't care what you know unless they know that you care about them. And so it needs to be warm, it needs to be genuine. We ask our employees to be very authentic. And we're going to talk with you about what is your objectives are. Why did you come in? What are you looking for? We have a kind of a new customer experience where we talk about the culture and the ethos of the company and how we approach things. And that really preface the question phase where we're starting to dig into what's going on with this customer. We have an impedance scan. It's a electrical impedance, bioimpedance scan in the store that they're welcome to use. We can work completely through food and exercise programming if necessary before supplements, and that's always at their speed. And actually what's really interesting is getting to the end, we take several steps to remove all pressure. So even if I've just wrote you a food program and an exercise program, you're not, and this customer should be very aware of this, they're not under any pressure to buy anything. It's walking the line. Sometimes they don't, and that's okay. But that same customer wants to come back and scan and see if it worked. And then once it works, now there's a faith built, there's a relationship built. And yeah, it's a service industry almost more than anything.
Can you kind of like break down the strategy that you mentioned earlier about the retention model? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so traditional supplement shops were very much built on a concept of return on investment, right? You marketed so many dollars per head to get them in the door, and you needed a return basically a revenue return on your first interaction. It was the mindset always was that you had one chance with that client because the market is so oversaturated, especially in a brick and mortar type environment where Amazon's in their living room. They don't have to talk to someone. If you have someone who's very insecure, just walking through our doors could be quite daunting. So when they're being marketed to on Facebook and Instagram and they can order from their living room, what separates us? And so we monitor if we're doing a good job, people come back. It's really not about the tickets that are going out the door. So we monitor when those customers come back to the store, whether it be to check in on the InBody, whether it be update nutritional programming. Ideally, they are purchasing, but we're monitoring it 3 months. If we can retain that customer at a highest rate over 3 months, we now have a lifelong, we've had the opportunity to implement a culture with them. We've probably done a good job of making them feel comfortable. And most likely, if they are buying something, it's working and they're happy with it. And so they understand us and we understand them at that point.
That is so good, man. Like, I always, talk about the secret in having a successful brick and mortar business is winning the client the moment they walk in and just over deliver, knock it out the part, blow their socks off, and just over deliver on that first transaction. Because they're gonna come back and they're gonna be happy with the result and they're gonna tell everybody about it. It's so important. And that's how you kind of grow your clientele base, right? Now you have 2, 3 more friends and family that they came in. They brought their friends and family in because they trust you. They know, like, and trust you now. That is so good that you're training a team doing just that. And I'm not, surprised to see how you're growing your, nutrition location 30% last year. And you literally spend close to nothing on like pay advertising. That's very interesting. What are your, big goals you want to knock it out?
Well, we're in we're a short staffing situation. My understanding in most of the country feels that way. I think if business owners and managers are the ones listening to this, we want to assemble a staff. I would like to groom a replacement for me and then move on to the next step, whether it be being sent in to rebuild another store, whether it be opening a new store or moving into a district manager role. The company, like we talked about, it's a complicated business model, but it's sweat equity. You can actually earn ownership in stores and start your own line. So that's where my continuation goes towards. I probably need to oversee a certain level of multiple stores successfully before I would get that opportunity. And I haven't opened a day one store. So far in my career, I've been a rebuilder. They send me in to fix stores that are underperforming, basically.
That's so cool, man. I mean, I'm sure you're on the right track. Just based on talking to you so far, you absolutely understand the customer service side is so important. You know, I mean, nutrition is a platform, is a vehicle to get people from pain point to pleasure, right?
Yeah,
But you are there to facilitate an environment for the client to do that. But overall, it's just understanding what they need and then making suggestions to help them, I would say, to help them reach their goals. Just like you said earlier, it's customer service, flat out.
yeah, and I think the only extension I would say for me is a big priority is often these people have been marketed to in a lot of disingenuous ways in our industry. And so being able to lead them to the conclusion, it takes a lot more than just, okay, this person wants to put muscle on, we need to take in more food. Here's a good exercise program to do that. Sometimes it's also helping them understand why that's important and what thought process they should be adopting as they start to evaluate things. Because if you're doing, in our case, we believe we're taking all the little small steps. The way we don't have a house brand. Every item in our shop is handpicked. And so that's an example of efficacy of dosing, delivery mechanism, price point for supplements. As you teach them and they become more knowledgeable, it actually further separates our model from the rest of the industry. They actually become more and more knowledgeable about what we're actually doing to separate ourselves and do the job better.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned a super crucial point here is the education aspect
Yeah,
of the customer service is one piece, but the other piece is the education
correct.
to the client so they understand, what is the best product for them and they can make
Correct.
their own choice, right?
Absolutely.
I totally love it, man. Great job explaining the business. And as I'm sure it's a very complicated business, but you explain it very, very well. What is your top three advice that you could give yourself, a few years back, right? Before you start the business, right? What would be the top three advice you would give yourself?
I think first one would be define your beacons and work and stay focused on them, especially early on. Um, Probably spread myself too thin and didn't stay focused on. I'll give you a great example. Right now we're growing. This month we're probably going to do about 50% growth over last September, which is great. I'm not complaining at all, but I have no staff. So it's like a catch-22, right? And so being able to compartmentalize and focus on beacons and understanding that my staff has to come first at a certain point, developing them. And we talked about how long of a process that can be. We're going to run into a natural governor of what the staffing and manpower can inherently do. And we're going to self-govern ourselves if we don't focus on that. So being able to prioritize on beacons, I think would be the biggest piece. And then also the second aspect, I think in a competitive market for jobs, fun. There's often when you're sitting in the seat that I'm in, that it's every moment of every day is allotted to a task and you have to become very studious, and horizon focus is what I talk about when I talk with other managers, or when I'm grooming a replacement in a shop. But just stop and remember our people. We invest so much in them, more than any other business I've seen as far as training goes. And we work so hard on the service that we have to take care of our people. And that's something I could stand to do a lot better with. I think anyone can, but I think those are the two big pieces I would coach myself on if I was going back to do it over again.
Thank you for sharing that, man. Like that is something I'm also going through is I need to hire more staff and I have people quitting, and I think about like, why did they leave? I mean, they wanted more pay and I couldn't meet with what they want because frankly, we can't pay what Amazon is paying. Not to say anything bad about Amazon,
Right.
but Amazon in my neighborhood is just expanding so quickly, and they're paying very high for entry level people, right?
Right.
So I would say the low entry positions are not available. Like I have to work to replace it because I couldn't hire people, and then we have to go back to like thinking about how do we recruit people and make it a fun place, even though because I know money is not the main thing here. It
Right.
is only half, but the other half is fun. Like they have to have fun working with us. They have to
Right.
love what they do, and they have to enjoy it too.
Right.
So not everybody want to pack boxes and sending out primes boxes every day for $22 an hour.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's definitely something I've I've had to become better and better at, and I need to continue improving. I read a lot to try to become a better manager. We're a very small company, so in many ways we don't have the infrastructure. So, but to what you were saying, I mean, everything that I've ever encountered, let's face it, people leave because of their managers. And as a manager, if you're having people leave, it's a hard pill to swallow that. But I've had to do that. I've had to learn. But I think when the culture's good and you take care of your people, that's when you'll get the service. When they're bought in, because we're talking everything about our business model is service. And when I'm not there, are they literally investing themselves in each client that walks in the door? And they have to be invested in the company culture, and they have to want to come to work to be in that mindset.
yeah, man, that is so true. How your staff work when you're not around, when you're not on the floor, and they are doing their best, to serve the client, right? And I think like you said, culture, leadership, and belief in the company, and like you said, you got to take care of your people. So all right, I mean, thank you so much, Jared, for sharing great wisdom with us, what's working well for you, and continue to being awesome. I think you're gonna be very successful in the future, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody listening.
So thank you.